Now, I can guarantee that if you sit right there, I will not tell you how to become the Prince of Bel Air, but if I ask you to remember everything that happened in your life for the past year, you're not going to come close. We're talking tip of the iceberg stuff. Or barely even a speck if your memory is anything like mine. And that is why annual reviews are so important. They help you to pull everything together and to see how full your life truly is. And to hone in on the key areas that are really going to make a big difference in your life. When you start to get a sense of that, you will start to get very excited for how much you could achieve in the next year. Let's go! Hi guys, it's Laura from How to Get Your Shit Together, and I teach productivity and personal development to busy people just like you to help you get the most out of life. And one of the ways that I get the most out of life is by tracking and celebrating my wins. Every little one. Now, let me just say first off that this doesn't necessarily have to be done at the end of the calendar year. It could be done on your birthday, it could be done at the end of the school year, any kind of turning point. It is about reviewing the last chapter of your life and setting yourself up for the new one. So I'm going to dive straight into the doing and show you my process. I literally just did this yesterday and I am so ready for the new year. The first thing I did was to stick up post-it notes with the names of each month of the year. This is something I'm doing a little bit differently this year because normally I do this on my laptop. But I went to a goal setting workshop recently and this was one of the exercises and I thought it was so helpful to see things stuck all over the wall. Maybe it sounds silly, but it really made it feel bigger. You know, seeing it on a page or in a Word document is all well and good. But seeing it take over wall space, that makes it seem so much more important, so much more impressive. So I wanted to recreate that. Now obviously it will look a little bit more impressive once I have it all filled out. But you do whatever way works best for you. So next, as you probably guessed, I started adding in all of the kind of good things or standout things that happened in each month. First, I just went from memory, so all the kind of big things, you know, birthdays, conferences, trips, holidays, etc. You can stick up purely professional or purely personal things if you want. I went with both because I don't really like separating my life that way. I kind of see it as two sides of the same seesaw. And I just generally wanted to get a sense of my life overall. Now, as I said, my memory's crap and you will eventually start to struggle to remember things too. So that is when you call for backup. For me, that comes in the form of my Mind Sweep notebook. So I've spoken about this in my planning video, so I'll link that if you want to learn more. But basically, every day I jot down some things that happened that day. You know, what I worked on, or a funny thing my daughter said, or my overall mood, what the weather was like, etc. It is like a very basic memory keeper. It's like a snapshot of my day. And then at the end of each month, I pull out all of the good things that happened, all the little wins and successes and the large ones, and I write them in a list. So for this review, all I had to do was to look at those lists and then just copy down the best moments. Now, you may not have a Mind Sweep notebook, so you might be wondering where you're supposed to be getting all this information from. It will take time, but I would recommend going through your calendar, going through your emails, your social posts, your text messages, and your photos, and anywhere else that you might jot down information. And those things are going to give you a really good, rounded view of your year. Okay, so at this stage you might be thinking, ain't nobody got time for that. But trust me, this process is going to open your eyes to how much you actually achieve, to how much life you actually live. You can easily just leave it up for several days, maybe even several weeks, and just keep coming back to it and adding to it as you think of new things or come across new things. Maybe each day for 12 days you focus on filling in a different month. Whatever way you want to do it, but I promise you, when you see how much stuff you did, everything from the big stuff to the small stuff, you will be amazed. And feel free to leave the monthly headers up or to transfer them to a planner or a notebook or a Word document, or start using a Minesweep notebook or whatever, so that for the coming year you can add things as you go, and then the next year when you sit down to do this, it will already be done for you. Magic. The next thing that I did was to group them into categories and label them. So this showed me where I was getting the most amount of satisfaction, the areas of my life that were providing the most or the biggest wins. So if you do this, not only will you have a sense of the scale of the year, of just how much you could actually achieve in a year, you will also have a very visual representation of where your time is best spent, where you are getting the biggest return on your investment. So you know now that those are the areas that you want to continue to focus on for the next year. Those are the things that are going to fill your cup, as it were. I think that sometimes in our heads, it's easy for things to get distorted. It's easy to think that you're not making much progress on something, but then you see something like this, something spread out, and you think, yeah, I'm actually doing okay. Or there may be some areas where you thought you were getting good results, but now that you see this, you realize that it was actually just like one or two standout moments that were kind of skewing everything, but overall, those things were just draining your time and energy. So that visual representation is so powerful because your brain can tell you all sorts, but Post-its don't lie. I will say though that the number of Post-its doesn't always infer importance. You may only have one or two Post-its in a category, but they may be really big wins. So if it helps, you could write your big wins on maybe one color of Post-it and your smaller wins on a different color. Or, put a star or something on the big ones. I personally didn't think that was necessary, but just know that quantity doesn't always reflect quality. The next thing I did then was to brainstorm. So I looked at all of the things that were going well, and I wondered if there were any improvements I could make. I included what my biggest obstacles were, where I kept falling down, who or what might help me, things like that, just on and on. It was very much a spitball thing, like I didn't stop to think about anything. If a thought or an idea or a question or even just like a random word or phrase popped into my head, I would write it down and I just stuck it up in a new blank space on my wall. Again, I grouped these things together as best I could, and I did readjust as I went, but it was so helpful because in my head I had all these different issues and it was terrible and I was never going to be able to overcome all of them, and woe is me. But with grouping, you can see that all of those things are actually just different ways of saying the same thing, and they can all be summed up or solved with one phrase. So for me, I noticed some kind of bottleneck areas where like one improvement would have a huge positive knock-on effect on so many other things. I could see that so many things, like not having enough time, not having the skill set, not knowing where to start, etc. But so many of those things could all be solved in one way by hiring the right person. So instead of thinking that you have like endless issues, you can boil them all down to just a handful of key areas. Plus, it was great to be able to see those things and to realize how much control I had over them. In every single area there was several small practical things that I could do to improve. So from there, I was able to make a clear list of what I needed to focus on next. I am going to be going through that in a lot more detail in next week's video, sharing exactly how you can take those key areas and use them to improve your life in the next 3 months. But doing a review like this will really help you to understand the scope of your life, the vastness of what you do in the day-to-day. It's easy to forget how much progress you're making until you see it over a large span of time. You will see exactly where your time is best spent and the key things that are really going to give you the biggest results. You're going to see where the real opportunities lie for making the next chapter of your life the best one yet. If you want to see exactly how I plan out my days and weeks and how I use my Minesweep notebook, then click and watch this video. And subscribe to catch the next video where you are going to put all of this into practice and draw out a clear roadmap for the next 3 months. And till then, Gurev Mila Mahagrev, agus feki me shif shigalua. Slán!